Hello, and thank you for joining us for the first episode of On Dialogue, a series of conversations with leading interreligious dialogue practitioners from countries throughout the world. In Dialogue provides perspectives from the field from people who are working for mutual respect and respect for difference in their communities and their societies. And with me today are 4 of the 2019 KAICIID Fellows who will be graduating this week here in Vienna. And I'd like to introduce them, beginning from my right, Ruth Wazana. Ruth is the founder of Limud France. She is also representing the Jewish Scouts Worldwide as the General Secretary of the International Forum of Jewish Scouts. She worked as a lawyer for 10 years in France and has lived in the UK, Mexico, and Israel. She is very passionate about the connection between Jews and their Jewish identity, and also relationships between Jews and non-Jews. She has returned to France, where she lives with her partner. They have created an organization called Roots of Tomorrow, an organization that aims to break down barriers of ignorance and prejudice. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
We also have Heba Salah. Heba is from Egypt, and she's a researcher and translator at the Egyptian House of Fatwa. She's a KAICIID Fellow from the Arab region and a founder of the Women's Voices for Peace initiative, which is supported by KAICIID. It's an initiative sponsored by KAICIID, which is an international organization that we're here representing. Also, in addition, we have Saleh Ketumala, who's a Buddhist nun, author, and public speaker. She's the founder of a Palavan Institute in Yangon, in Myanmar. She's an author of several articles in newspapers, journals, magazines, and the book Ketumala Nindan. Did I say that right? Ketumala Nindan, which emphasizes social justice, gender equality, peace and justice, Buddhism, and social welfare. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Father Stephen Ajopa is a Catholic priest with the Missionary Society of St. Paul of Nigeria. He's working in the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, and he's the director for Interreligious Dialogue and Ecumenicism for the Diocese of Sokoto, and a parish priest at St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Gedan Mai Kambu. Father Stephen also lectures in communication and interreligious dialogue and is a catecho trainer, or a trainer of Catholic belief. And I also welcome you to our show. So I'd like to begin with the topic that we're all here to discuss, which is interreligious dialogue. Many of us have already been in dialogue since arriving in Vienna. The first question I'd like to begin with is, why is it important? Why is interreligious dialogue important? Where and when is it needed? Who would like to begin? Why is interreligious dialogue important?
Okay, shall I begin?
Sure.
Okay.
Begin with Heba.
Okay. Okay, thank you for giving us this opportunity to be with those active people on promoting peace and promoting coexistence among their communities and societies. And I think this is the message of every one of us in this world. Talking about the importance of dialogue, I think we really we need it. We are in a bad need for dialogue, especially with the things that we see around the world, the wars, the misunderstanding. Everyone as if is living in his own ivory tower, thinking about his own. I think I'm seeing that the world is tending to go for a new perception, which is individualism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm talking about try to be yourself, try to be you. You're focusing only on yourself. You're not thinking about the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the need for dialogue, I think it has become like the food and water to live by. And in order to spread this or to promote this, it's not an easy job for people who are working in religious institutions to do it, especially with some of us may find some things restraining you, whether for I cannot travel, I have something to abide by concerning security-wise or religiously-wise. Most of the people around the world don't understand what's dialogue, how to start a dialogue. When you mentioned the word before, common people or the public people, What do you mean by dialogue? We are talking every day. They don't have the wide or the big image of dialogue. So I think we have to start, first of all, defining what's dialogue to people. Before starting to engage in dialogue, I have to tell people what's dialogue, because we need it. Yes, we need it. The second step is to get out of the formal, that talking in conferences or talking to people in academic atmosphere. I think it's the right of lay people or the common people to get the message. So I think we have to start by this. So I think if you agree or don't agree, who can...
Can I ask you just a follow-up in terms of... sorry. In terms of the work that you do, because I agree with you, I think a lot of people don't really know what dialogue is. When I say I work in interreligious dialogue, people are like, well, what is that? So you just talk to each other, you talk to people. So can you describe a little bit about the kind of work that you do? You work specifically with women in Egypt with your initiatives, right?
Actually, I work as a researcher and translator for the Media Outreach Center at Fatwa House in Egypt. This is a formal religious institution under the umbrella of the famous institution of Al-Azhar in Egypt. I think everyone knows what Al-Azhar is. After finishing my master's degree last year, and I dedicated my main theme in the master's degree to women inside religious institution, because actually during my research I discovered that there is no connection or dialogue between women and men inside the religious institution. I mean that the gender perspective or the gender mainstreaming inside the religious institution in Egypt, whether the Muslim or the Christian institution, we don't have this gender lens about their issues. So that's why I started to focus on this more on my work. I work generally in research as an institution responsible for responding to people. We need to know more about people before responding to them. And here starts the issue of dialogue. So when I got the chance with KAICIID with the initiative, I made use of the chance and dedicated my initiative to women's voice for peace, how to break the stereotypes chaining women in the Arab societies. This is in a nutshell.
Yeah, I just want to kind of follow up with that because we have two other women here, and I think it would be good to hear their voices as well. Satele, could you please speak a little bit about your work with Buddhist nuns in Myanmar?
Yes, my initiative is we have study a dialogue among the Buddhist nuns in Myanmar. Why I am doing my project? My reason is, I think few years ago, in our country we had many dialogue programs in our country about peace or about conflict. So people now how about the people considering the dialogue? They think dialogue doesn't work for community. They are disappointing this time. So I think I should be there do something to the misunderstanding between dialogue and the kind of dialogue and the mediation, or the kind of dialogue and the negotiations. As people think this dialogue is only the national level doing, but actually dialogue is very important because we are learning and understanding to each other.
That people are not connected to each other.
Of course, we are very different. We in Myanmar, I live in there. Our country have different ethnic groups, 135 minority group, also ethnic group, and then many different regions that we are stayed together. So we are staying in the different community, different culture, and different religion, and different ethnic, different language So we need dialogue to understand each other. I think the only way is dialogue is the important solution to understanding and then to learn each other. So our community about he mentioned that my initiative is the Buddhist nun dialogue. Why? In Myanmar we had as a later person, more people realized and figure out the monks, the monk, male monk. The first time I meet with the first time we had the training in Vienna in January. The first time for our fellow friend, they didn't figure out I am male or female. So Father asked me, this is the Buddhist, because they know Buddhist only monks. So Buddhist monks are only the easy one, but Buddhist nuns they didn't. Yeah, the people in our Buddhism, monks are leadership role, the main actor role. So the first time they meet me, they don't know he is confusing, male or female like this. so he asked me, I am male or female. It is indicate. It is mentioned how is the role of the Buddhist nun condition, because in our country, the main role and the main actor role are the monks, the leadership, and the religious leaders are all are the monks. But we had over 58,000 of the nuns in Myanmar, almost 60,000 of nuns in Myanmar. But we had big the population, 60,000. I mean between 58 and 60,000, this population census according to 2016 list. It means we had a very big population and the nun, but where is the role of the nuns, the Buddhist nun in Myanmar? So I already asked the question, and only people thinks and then people consider the nun are just supporter, just supporting role and supporter role, just in the kitchens and yes, just in the cleanings like this, but it's promoting the Buddhist teaching or the for community, the welfare or community. This is not related and not concerned of our Jude their what. This is only the monks. Our monks are doing in the community work also, the social work too, and then also the religious work. But the nuns are not considering. So my initiatives, I'm trying to be the talk our nun, but this is not only because of the nun community. The people and our society is the male-dominated society, you know. So of course, and the our religious community too. So the nun community is the nun community was marginalized. That's why we try to be organized and what is the capacity of the nun, how to use in our welfare of the community and the welfare of the country. So we are going this the dialogue. My initiators, we are studying dialogue among the Buddhist nuns. This one.
Thank you very much, Satali. And it's so important for you to be doing this pioneering work by engaging Buddhist nuns. I do know what you mean. We tend to have a lot of Buddhist monks, but not so many nuns. I think you're our first nun in the Fellows program, and we're really grateful to you for being a part of the program and the work that you do. I haven't forgotten about you, Father Stephen. We'll come back in a second, but I want to go to Ruth. Right now, with your work in France, I think it's really important. We keep hearing reports of rising anti-Semitism and Islamophobia as well in Europe. Can you speak a little bit about your work as a woman who's working in interreligious dialogue in France?
Yes, thank you. In France, that's right. There is a rise of radicalization. There is a rise of fears. And with my partner, we decided a few years ago to create a new NGO in order to develop the knowledge of religions. We understood actually that most of the fears are caused by the miss of knowledge, by the lack of knowledge, and that when the children, when the teenagers, when the adults learn about the others, learn about the others who are just their neighbors, then they become more acquainted with it, and they can start discussion, and they can start being more open to the other. So we decided to develop it, and we have an action throughout the year in order to go into schools and to explain Judaism, to explain Islam, to explain Christianism to children. And also we are developing now some trainings in order to teach the guides in the church, in the mosques, in the synagogue, and also teachers and also social workers about what it means to work with people who are slightly different from me. And the slightly different can be sometimes a huge world. So it's really about how do I face the other, another identity, another set of mind, another worldview. Very often we believe that the other is like us because we think as one from our own perspective, and we don't realize that our neighbor on the same floor might live a completely different life. So it's how to make people engage into the fact that we are all different, and that we have the great chance in France to live in a democratic and a beautiful country. Then how much do we know about our neighbor? So it's really getting to get into the dialogue with the other, and it's by knowing about ourselves and knowing about the other.
Thank you, Ruth. Father Stephen, I do want to come to you and speak with you a little bit about your work in the Diocese of Sokoto. I know you do a lot of work with between Christians and Muslims, and your initiative was actually devoted to that. Could you speak a little bit to what your work you're doing there and the type of engagement you have with the Muslim community in Sokoto?
Thank you very much. Before I go into that, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I feel intimidated by these women. I seem to be the only man, the majority, and virtually all of them were talking about how women don't have a voice. Yeah. You can now see that it is the man here who doesn't have a voice. But thank you so much, and thank you, Mike. Basically, I think our world needs dialogue more than ever. And thanks to the social media, thanks to technology, thanks to this kind of gathering, back in Sokoto, Nigeria has been in the news sometimes for very bad reasons. Boko Haram, extremism, violent way of preaching the gospel and the message of the Quran. And I live in the northwestern part of the country. Sokoto Diocese has basically more Muslims than Christians. The entire region is more Muslim in number, but 90 to 95%. So the Christian population is very minimal. I try to, first of all, create friendship with my Muslim communities. We have issues of forced conversion. Sometimes in some communities, we have issues of not having access to build their churches. We have issues of sometimes churches being destroyed as a result of any conflict, whether it is political or whether it is religious. We have churches being burnt down. So I try to begin my work by just creating friendship with Islamic scholars, their leaders, the traditional rulers, which most times happen to be Muslims. And I'll give you a very short example and a story. Back in my parish, for example, we have always had these issues of children within the age of 18 getting converted against their wish, sometimes forcefully taken. And I remember a particular incident where a little boy of 13 years was alleged to have converted to Islam. And normally, these cases are very rampant in the northern part of the country, and you have issues of people going into courts, months, litigations that don't just get ended. And when this particular issue came to me, I simply wrote a letter to one of the traditional rulers who oversees just like the mayor, what you have like the mayor. I wrote him a letter and I explained the context of this young boy. And surprisingly, within 24 hours, the young boy was released back to his parents. That was only achieved because I have some level of friendship with the imams and with the traditional ruler, and he could easily identify my signature and my writing and my request. Now, do we need dialogue in our time? Yes. Why do we need it? Where do we need it? Everywhere. Because obviously it reduces animosity. It reduces the hatred we see and we feel. And I think we have to thank these organizers for trying to, as much as possible, create this, bridge this gap. And in my last initiative with KAICIID, we did something that was a little bit new, very new. We visited churches and mosques, and I got this inspiration when we came to Malaysia in the Tier 2 training. That was my first time of entering a mosque and entering also a Buddhist temple. And when I saw that, it lived with me. That experience lived with me. So when I went back to Nigeria, we tried to see, well, it's possible for us to visit a school. And interestingly, the schools that we run in the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, 80-90% of the population are actually Muslims. So the sisters train they train everybody. But Muslims happen to be more in number. So we tried to see, well, we can actually try to bring the Muslims to visit a church, which is not common. To also take the Christians to visit a mosque, which does not happen. When I brought the suggestion to the sisters to say, well, want to do something like that, they said, no, it's not possible. We don't want trouble here. But I tried to let them know that, well, it's possible. We can try it. And we tried it. And when we visited the mosque, the reception was phenomenal. But to show you how the psychic of the environment is, the first community we visited, after we went to the church, when we went to the mosque, we saw a group of people sitting outside. And the imam came to me and said to me, "Oh, Father, we might not enter the mosque." I said to him, "Why?" He said, "These people that are sitting here, they may cause trouble." I said, "Talk to them." So he went to them, he talked to them, he explained to them what we came for, because the students were putting on their school uniform. And the young people outside said, "Wow, it's okay, it's fine." So we walked into the mosque and exactly. So that simple dialogue, even with the Muslim community who he felt will not accept us entering the mosque, was actually not true. So dialogue is actually very important. And I think sometimes if you take dialogue wrongly in terms of trying to incite people, you get the negative effect. But if you also take it positively, you also get the positive effect. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Father.
I have comment.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
So yes, through what I heard from Ruth and Father, she said that we should involve in dialogue with the other while knowing ourselves first. So I think I will not be able to engage in dialogue before working on my shortcomings, my personal shortcomings. I have to realize, as our Father said, that we should go ahead for positive change. Yani not to incite people, but to change them to the better. And this is very important concept that everyone working in dialogue and interreligious dialogue should start from this and put this on mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you raised the interesting question of, who should dialogue involve, though, because I think there are certain skills and capacities that you learn through dialogue, and we need to obviously involve more people in dialogue and to pass on those skills. But I'm wondering about, because you spoke a little bit about the hesitancy that people have in your own Christian communities. Do you also face people who are not only reluctant, but maybe who are not supportive of the work that you're doing? Yeah.
Dialogue?
With it, dialogue.
Oh,
Yeah, people within your own community.
Yeah. My initiated name, I just mentioned studying dialogue among the Buddhist nun, English version. But in Burmese word, I not use this dialogue name. Why? This is the first time. And then in our country, the dialogue, the tenth dialogue name is the Lotao. So people are a little bit suspicious, and then they not trust like this, because they think this is misunderstanding of the ten between dialogue and negotiation. It is a political issue, because the political issue is not, for example, we had the reconciliation. The process is long time happening, but no yet agreement. So people think that without dialogue, dialogue it doesn't work, because we are, now is without the agreement, ceasefire and conflict. Stay is happen in the end conflict around the northern side and then western side in a country. So people are misunderstanding the political negotiation and then dialogue. Actually, this is the political issue. This is the negotiation, negotiation. The ceasefire, it means agreement. So dialogue is not like this. Dialogue is you win or I win, or you agreement, or not a solution. Actually, dialogue is just understanding and learning.
Win-win situation.
Yeah, the people the problem is our community had a misunderstanding. They need the dialogue education. What is the dialogue mean? But they are misunderstanding. So I making my initiative. I'm very careful to use the dialogue word. The tenth of dialogue. I'm very careful to touch this word. I don't want the misunderstanding. So I'm trying to be trust-bearing with the conversation or the dialogue. But after we are conversation and then we dialogues, I had many the series of dialogue with the nun. After we are making a dialogue, we are more understanding each other. What we can be building trust. We can trust building each other. So then after the initiative, we got very good thing. A team is united. Yeah, harmony, because the reason is the dialogue. Before we are difficult to talk each other. For example, the nun also, people thinks is a nun, or the religious person is a quiet person. So quiet, don't touch too much. And then the humble, people think the nun or religious people is a more quiet person, but without talking, without the conversation, how we can understand each other? So yes, our people. I organized in Myanmar. We had 14 states and the province. I can organize from the 13 state and province for my initiative, but some of the nun are I can't organize because they hesitate. And this is what are doing. They think what are they doing? The English version saying the dialogue, the studying dialogue. They not trust something like that. They don't want to involve. So I also face stay in our people in our community in the Buddhist community have also they have misunderstanding of the dialogue times.
Ruth?
Yes, I believe that within the Jewish communities, there is also a big question regarding why are you trying to dialogue with people who anyway want to kill us? Of course, that is a caricature, but it gives the global mindset of a lot of Jews, at least in France, and with what happened for the last decade or so, are really afraid, and they don't believe anymore in dialogue, and they believe that if we stay close and just within ourselves, it will be safer.
Did someone before told you that? Someone told you before that you're just wasting your time. What the dialogue? Why you engage in dialogue? This is just a waste of time. Someone told it exactly in the same word. You are engaging into just waste your time. Go ahead. So.
Yeah, that happened.
Did you hear this before?
I did hear it, but it's. I usually take it as their point of view. Usually, people who tell me this cannot be done, it means that they cannot do it. It doesn't mean that I cannot do it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just that from their point of view, it's something that is too difficult because they don't believe in it, or because they came back from it for any reason, and they would not take their time to try to build dialogue or to try to go and meet other people. And I see it with my eyes, saying, okay, so this person won't do it. Does it mean that I won't do it? No. I believe in it. So if I believe in it, then I can see it and I can create it. And I go for it. And what I see also is that the reverse side, which is when we organize things and when it works, then people come back saying, oh, but actually, I didn't think it would work. Oh, that gives me hope. And so it's just like going, furthering into dialogue and furthering into what we believe in, we can give hope to people who had lost hope, just because they thought it was not possible. But as said Mark Twain, they didn't know it was impossible, therefore they did it. Therefore they made it.
Yes, please.
I mean, I heard something very interesting here today in Vienna when a fellow was talking about getting the Christians on the dialogue table difficult. It was easier to get the Muslims here to dialogue. Now, it just resonated with my personal experience. Depending on where you stand, if you are in the majority, you don't need dialogue. If you are in the minority, you are craving for dialogue. You wish people can dialogue with you. Now, it is a general experience everywhere you find yourself once you're in the minority. And for the majority, sometimes dialogue becomes a tactics. It's like we are talking, but what you want to do, you keep doing it. Whatever policy that will count against the minority, you will keep doing it because it will appear as if we're in dialogue. In Nigeria, sometimes there are people who feel the dialogue has not actually yielded any fruit. I don't think that anyway. I feel it has. We may not measure it in terms of 1 + 1 = 3, but we know that it has worked. And most importantly, sometimes when a minority feels isolated from the system, and when they don't have the access to even challenge the system, dialogue becomes like a waste of time. Because when the leaders keep talking, and then those who are in the minority don't see the physical impact in their lives, then what are you talking about? Of what use is the dialogue? So sometimes we try to measure dialogue by how improved is the life of a minority. I'm happy Ketumala was talking about the the voice that the Buddhist nuns don't have. Sometimes when they are not even in smaller numbers, but probably because the society does not recognize women, you could see that no matter how the system is talking, if the nuns don't feel their contributions matters, dialogue becomes a waste of time. So I think also we should find a way of trying to empower the minority as much as possible as a component of dialogue, because that is where you begin to see if I have access to whatever the majority have, I wouldn't need to complain about the non-existence of dialogue.
I think that's a really good point you raised, that the different perspective being a minority and not a majority, and then that craving to be in dialogue in order to be represented and heard by the majority of society. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk to you personally a little bit about how you came to be involved in this kind of work. So, how did you get into dialogue? Basically, what brought you into this kind of work?
For me, it started very young. At the age of 7, there was a young girl who we were playing together, and then she came back to me and explained me that she couldn't play with me anymore because she didn't want to catch, I quote, Jewish disease. And that was something that I didn't know by that time. So I was afraid for her, and I told her, yeah, sure, go back to your mother. I don't want you either to catch the Jewish disease. And I had no idea what it was. So I ran to my parents and I asked them, so what is this Jewish disease? And then they started to explain me about anti-Semitism, and that they didn't think they would have to explain me that young. But okay, that happened, that caught me. And actually from this age, I had a thought about what happened, why the Jews have been discriminated against for all these years, because then I tried to dig. And then I decided that when I would be a grown-up, I would try to find the reasons why it happened, and why in general people get not necessarily nice to each other, or why they have prejudices one group to each other, and how I can fight against that. So it really comes from early childhood, the decision to go and fight for it.
Yes, I think the experiences that happens at early ages, it lasts for lifetime. In Egypt, we have something. I think this should end in at schools. When I was a young child and the religious classes start, in the class we were Muslim and Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So for the Muslim students, the teacher who will teach them the religion come to them in class, while the minority, the minority Christian students, they are taken outside the class to find another place to take their religion class. So I started to notice this, and by the age of, I think, 11, I was in the preparatory school. I started to ask my mother why this happens. Why don't we stay in the same class when we have the religion class? Why they take our Christian friends and trying to find another place just to give them their class? So my mother started to teach me that this is not part of the religion. Islam as a religion teaches us to respect people of other faiths, and started to help me talk in a nice way to the teacher, and the teacher had to raise it to the head of the school. So we had to follow we had to follow the rules without making it or escalating things. But I'm thankful for my mother that she taught me that this is not the religion, and what happened in the society should not contaminate your pure heart regarding the other. So I kept this on mind, and things still happen like this at the school. So recently, after finishing or while working on my master's degree, I started to think about things again, and found that this issue should come to an end. I'm working on this right now. I didn't announce it so far, but I'm working to address something to the Ministry of Education in Egypt, just to include in their curriculum that the Muslim and the Christian student should take the same class at the same place. If you want to take them out, take all the students, Muslims and Christians.
They don't teach the same thing. How do you intend to?
Sorry, go ahead.
They don't teach the same thing. So how do you intend to ask them to stay in the same class during religion class, and who teach what, and want them? Well, I don't know.
Yes, I know. I know what you mean. I mean that don't do this at the time. Yeah, for example, if it's time for religion class, don't take the students or the Christian student before the Muslim. This you teach the student discrimination. You tell a message that the Christian students are discriminated against. So the school should find another way. The school should tell the students that we believe in such and such, and they believe in such. Just take it to the faith issue or the creed issue, you know. So I'm thinking about or writing a draft and addressing the Ministry of Education. I have no idea whether it will.
Works in Egypt, please let me know. I'm interested.
Yes.
I want to just make sure everybody gets the microphone able to speak. So we can
2 points regarding that. In France, we don't have at all classes on religions, so that cannot happen, and that's something that I think would be good, because the children then have no knowledge about it and only prejudices. So that's also why our organization is being asked to speak in high schools and in schools, because they don't have regular classes. And I went to live a few years in Israel, and there I was working in 2013. Actually, I worked in l'École des Frères, which is a Christian Arab school in Yafo, in Jaffa. And that was exactly as you wish, meaning it was a Christian school, Arab Christian school, with about half Muslims, half Christians, and a little bit of Jews also. And you had all backgrounds, about 15 different nationalities. Backgrounds, they were all Israeli. And for religion class, it was programmed, and after math or mathematics or French or English or Arabic or like whatever would be their lessons, they would go to religion class, and so they would go to
all the students
Muslim. All the students, and there is a class dedicated for Muslims, a class dedicated for Christians, and I mean I guess the question had been raised before, and it had been fixed really in a nice way.
Yes. So they don't let the Christian student ask why I'm getting out of class.
No.
You know. So I'm working on this issue. Everything that a child feels in childhood, it goes with him or with her throughout the life. So a little child, why I'm discriminated against? Why did I do to take me outside the class to find a place? Why my Muslim students are staying in the same place? You know the feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you both have shared stories from your childhood of exclusion, you having experienced prejudice and discrimination, and you having observed what you felt was discriminatory towards
why you let them feel
others.
that they are superior? Why you let them the Muslims that are superior? Because we are all equal. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Heba. Ketumala, I want to ask you a little bit. So, what brought you on the path to becoming involved in interreligious dialogue? Did you always, like, when you initially became a nun, did you always plan to be involved in dialogue, or is it something that kind of grew out of the work that you were doing?
I became the nun. I was 18 at the time, so I have the experience. Before 18, I had a gay life. After 18, I have the nun life. A gay life, the first in our community, we had realized that we are visiting the Buddhist site, Buddhist religious area, for example, monastery or the meditation center, pagoda, statue. There is everywhere the limitations. The women are not allowed to go and to enter. You can be seen if you go to Myanmar, you can see everywhere it's a signboard writing "women are not allowed." This one. So I asked my mom, why we cannot enter? So, because we are women. So the first thing, I think religious in Buddhism has something the teaching about the woman. I really want to know what is the Buddhist teaching is. What is the limitation? The women are not going. Only this area, very strict one. I always confusing, and then something the feeling pain look like you. Oh, we are the man is more be the superior. We are the lower position. Why? I always complain my mom. My mom say, don't question too much. Don't question too much. They told no enter, don't enter. Then I asked my grandmother. Why we cannot enter this place. My grandma saying the answer, but I realized my grandmother age, they are just follow this tradition. Then my mother time had to follow. So my mother time the follow this tradition. Now this time we have to follow. So I want to the question about our culture and tradition. Then I became the nun at 18. I had the religious side, and I had studied the Buddhist study. Yeah, the first I study is about this one. So I want to know where is the principle and where is the teaching about this gender issue. The Buddha, how he is the mentioner. After I studied the many years, and I asked also my teacher, my master, asked, no mention about in Buddha time, there is no symbol like this. In Buddha time, you can enter everywhere. It means that I can understand after the experience of the nun life, and after study about the Buddhist teaching, that I realized Buddhist teaching and the culture is the missing one in our country. The culture is more influenced. The tradition is more influenced. Especially the tradition is rooted from the male-dominated society. Then, a few years study the university also after my study in Buddhist study in the university. That at the time, I really want to share my what are my experience, and then I want to talk to other women. But in Buddhist teaching, it's not mentioned like this. I want to say, but at the time, I am very far away in the Myanmar. I'm studying the Sri Lanka, so. But I want to say what I'm trying to say. The dialogue is not only the talking. Dialogue mentioned another way also. At the time, I think how can I talk other women? What is the channel? What is the platform to my idea and what I want to say to they can reach. The other time I start to write article, short essay or article about my experience. Also about the woman issue, about experience as a nun, about experience as a female religious leader, about experience as girls, So this is the first. I writing the issue is not only the Buddhist woman issue, because I write my article is about a woman issue, a girl issue. So after 1 year, I'm posting my article in the first in the Facebook, social media, and then later the newspaper, magazine. Then I have the audience. I surprised. Some of my fans are not only the Buddhist girl, the Islam girl, because they are also the same faith in their tradition. They can admit me, and sometimes they can agree with me. Yes, I am a big fan of you, but I see she is the Islam lady, Islam girl. I say, why? I say, yes, we are facing the same. We are struggling in our religion. The community is like this. That's why I understand. Yeah, this is not only in the Buddhist community. Other religious everywhere has been this gender issue. This is a common issue. This is the first time I understand. Writing is not only the care of for the Buddhist care. Actually, I just share my experience. But this is an empower for all of the cares, all of the lady woman. Then why I understand this the interreligious dialogue, the power of interreligious dialogue, and then the result is more powerful. This is not emphasize a religion. We emphasize the issue, the common issue. Then I came in this way. After I'm publishing my book, then we were making the documentary film. The three lady, me, Buddhist nun, and then one of the Christian sister, and the Islam lady. The name is she. We just talking about what are we facing in our female religious leader and the female religious nun life. This documentary film is very powerful to our community. So
And where was it released?
in Myanmar,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, it was via YouTube?
No, this is film festival. For film festival, yes. Now we can be see in the internet also. Yeah.
Thank you, Father Stephen.
Thank you very much. I feel touched, but when Ruth Wazana was talking, I was quite touched by her experience. And each time I listen to Ketumala, her stories are always very interesting. And thank you, Ketumala. Personally, I became involved in inter-religious dialogue when I became a priest. And to be honest, before I became a priest, we have some of our leaders who were into dialogue with Islam, Bishop Kaigama, Bishop Kuka, Cardinal Nikon. These men were phenomenal at the international stage on dialogue. And personally, really, I never believed in what they were doing, because sometimes the more they talked with the Muslim communities, the more they had crisis in some of those places. So I just saw, I didn't feel they were making any progress. But when I became a priest, I was sent to the Diocese of Sokoto, and the diocese has 4 states, and all the states were actually dominated more by Muslims. And I realized that the Christian community where I work with particularly were in the very minority, and they are mostly poor farmers, peasants. They call them the Maguzawa Christians. And they have very little or no representation in the government, very little. And you can imagine when a community stays without a voice in the government system, and then they have very little access to what others will just get easily because of majority. And there was also a lot of low self-esteem in facing the wider society. So they were struggling to find a voice that could just lead them into the wider society. And they had issues, like I was talking about a young boy with false conversion. there are so many girls who will be taken into marriage forcefully without their consent. Sometimes it could be with their consent, but they are underaged. So there's always going to be a case in the court. No, the person is not up to age. The person it's a boyfriend girlfriend issue. So you'll be caught in between. How do I address the issue? So I saw a need to bridge that gap. So like I said, I began by just creating friendship with the Muslim leaders, visiting them at Christmas, taking some gifts to them, they coming to my house, and that transformed into formal invitation. In fact, in the palace of one of the traditional rulers in my community, the first picture you see in the palace when you enter his palace is my picture and his when he came to visit me in the church. He came to visit me at Mass. We had a ceremony like 5 years ago. I invited him for the first time. He was entering a church. So when he came in, we gave him the space. He spoke to the community and they snapped us. So I framed it big and I took it to his palace and he put it right there. As you enter his palace, that's the first picture you're going to see. So that image created a lot of good impression for my own community and also for the Muslim community to see that, well, it is possible for our leaders to actually hang around, to visit each other. And that has really helped me to begin to engage more of the Muslim communities. And it has yielded fruits positively for my people, at least. And like I said, dialogue becomes a necessity if you are in the minority. You know, you just see that, and the minority here, even in terms of opportunity, just like my sister Ketumala was talking about. Sister Ketumala is talking about the fact that once you're a lady, you don't have the same access. The same thing with my Egyptian sister. The same thing also. You don't have that experience a little bit, but oh really? Yeah. All right.
I have just
Yes,
a comment. Through the experiences we hear here, mine and Ruth and Kotimala and Father, I think I can sum it up in this: the point of pain, or sometimes pain, can be a great motivator for a great achievement in the future. So not every pain is something negative.
Yeah.
Sometimes pain is the only way to go ahead and do something, but we have to discriminate.
I think that's a really good transition.
Yeah.
If I could, to the next, I want to talk a little bit about achievements and changes that we've seen. You know, we spoke early on about what is this dialogue like? What are you doing with your time? Could you speak to like changes that you've seen maybe in your communities, in your societies in the past years that you feel are in some way related to dialogue, or the result or the fruit of dialogue?
I can talk about change that we are creating within the Scouts. During the World Scout Jamboree, for instance, that gather between 25 to 55,000 scouts, meaning teenagers from 14 to 17 years old. We have a faith and belief zone. And within this zone, you have a lot of different faiths represented. And usually in the evening, so the teenagers can come and visit each tent and learn about each religion. And in the evening, we have a dialogue moment. Where the teenagers can come and ask any question they want, and all of us will answer him with different philosophies, answers regarding our own religions. And I know that going through the faith and belief zone for a lot of the Scouts, a lot of children, a lot of teenagers around the world, it has been the only way for them to discover other religions that don't necessarily exist in their own country. And I think of a young scout who was 16 in 2015 from Egypt that came to our tent, Jewish tent, and asked a lot of questions. And he was telling me, maybe my grandmother was Jewish, but we're not sure. And I want to understand the difference between Jews and Islam. And actually that was very interesting because he was full of questions.
Took the initiative.
He took the initiative to come and to ask a lot of questions, and he was keeping asking me questions, and actually his questions were somehow disturbing for me too. And then I started really to ask myself questions about Islam, regarding Judaism, regarding his questions. And that was also a way of opening my eyes for me through his questions that were really interesting and very pertinent. And so that's one thing that I can say through scouting. We are really doing a lot of things. And I will give another example of the everyday job that we are doing in Lyon, so in south of France. For instance, organizing a visit of a synagogue. There was a young guy, like 14, 15 years old, getting inside the synagogue. He took a kippah, this little hat that Jews wear, that men wear. And he put it on his head and he said, "I'm Jewish, I'm rich, I'm Jewish." And that is a prejudice that is one of the numerous prejudices that there is for Jews. Like, we all have prejudices against our different religions. And so he started with this prejudice, and at the end of the 1 hour and a half, 2 hours presentation, he said, well, you know what? Really, thank you so much for what I learned, because I think I was full of prejudices before, and now I feel that I can explain, or at least I'm not going to react the same way that I used to do. So for each person that has a change, I think it's really something very positive that we see.
That's great, by the way. Yes. For me, the change I'm seeing now in Egypt concerning dialogue on gender issues, relating to religious perspective. And what I'm seeing is that academics in Egypt, or researchers in Egypt, especially female researchers, active female researchers, are active in this arena to break the stereotypes regarding the perspective about women within the religious perspective. As I told you before, that two different religions existing in the same country, and I discovered that, for example, a young lady spent 19 years of her age without contacting or knowing a Christian friend. So these they are starting to break these borders right now. Women are active to engage in dialogues relating to religion and gender at the same time. I'm one of them. I'm just starting my path, but I think something new will happen soon in the Middle East in general.
Thank you very much, Sheba. Satale?
Yes. I choose this way, the nan life. My teacher, my school teacher, my family is not allowed. They always don't choose this way. If you choose, this is very isolated community, nan community. Very isolated community. Actually, I am a very active student in my school. So I am a favorite for my teacher. So they love me, and my family also love me. So they don't want to be. They say your world is very more isolated if you enter this way. If you choose this way, if you choose this nun who named life, you are very marginalized. You are isolated. You are away from every part. But now I can show this is not. I can agree. See, now my world is not isolated. I am not marginalized. I can do more than they expect. What I mean, why I choose this way, but not only as a religion. I choose a religion. I already say I'm a Buddhist practitioner. I'm a practice person. Now I have a lecture in the Myanmar Institute of Theology. So it's actually Myanmar Institute of Theology is the Buddhist Christian university. But as a Buddhist nun, they invite me and to give a lecture. Before, the Buddhist nun not go and teach or the lecture in the Buddhist or the Christian university. But we are what we learn and what teaching. This is actually not only specific a community. Actually, for all we can be shared for all the community. So, what does you mean the fruit of the interreligious dialogues? Yeah, I am passing this way. My community and my space more with wider and wider. I am not only in the Buddhist community. I am working also in the Baptist or the Christian community too. This is, I think this is very powerful for not only the nun or a woman also. Our capacity is not only just a small community, not only a family. We can make. Why don't we can be the wider our envelopment? Why don't we can be taught, and why don't we can be communicate the wider communication with the other? So with me, I think this is because I am choosing this the interreligious dialogues way, but not only a dialogue on sitting. I'm by writing article, by collaborate together with the other related men and the other related women. Result of this, the other different community, even they are different community, because you can see it, my appearance is very religious Buddhist. You don't need ask me. You don't need to ask me. You're very clear, but people understand. Even I wearing this one, I am believe in the Buddhism, but Christian the student they willing to listen what I teach, what my teaching, what my lecture. Islam guests really want to read my article. They are willing to wait what is new can meet my article. You know, I think this is very power of the IRD.
Father Stephen, just I do want to go to you again. You spoke a little bit about I think some of the achievements that you've been able to attain through dialogue in Sokoto. Do you have a story of something that's like a transformation, perhaps to an individual or to a situation in Nigeria that you could kind of highlight as an example of from your experience and your work in IRD?
Absolutely. I think for me, the first transformation has to do with myself. Personally, that is what I think. Like I said, before I became a priest, I really didn't see the need to be on the same talking table and talking stories that do not have any impact. So for me, the first transformation has to do with me. But secondly, in my little community, before I came to that community, they have always had these issues of forceful conversion with girls. They have always had, almost every time here and now, you hear this particular girl has been converted forcefully. But they have had this issue. But I have lived in that particular community now for like 6 years. The only story that happened was like 2 years ago, and what I said when I wrote the letter to the Hakimi, they call him the Hakimi, the matter got resolved. So for me, the change has to do with that community not experiencing that kind of thing, at least because of my engagement with some of the Muslim leaders. And even if it does happen, we don't have to go to courts. We don't have to go to the police. It finds a way of getting resolved amicably. So for me, these have really personally touched me that, well, with some little understanding, we don't really have to be violent to each other.
Looking back at 2019, we have witnessed attacks on worshippers in New Zealand, the Easter Sunday attacks in Sri Lanka, and recently there were attacks in Germany as well. It seems that no religious community seems to be protected from hate and violence. So we know about the negative headlines, we see it in the media, but I'd like to just hear from you very briefly. What gives you hope when it comes to dialogue? What gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that we are meeting here in this session, and there are good people working on dialogue, good people advocating dialogue, good people advocating peace in this world. I do believe in a good saying that everything is difficult before it's easy, so be patient. But at least you have to start. We have to start. We have to establish new concepts. As if we are encountering extremism with moderation. So this is how to have hope. Along the way, there are things that will be obstacles. There are difficulties. This is the nature of life. But what gives me hope that there are institutions like KAICIID, for example, doing great job worldwide, not only for Muslims or Christians or Jews. It's just serving humanity. So this gives me high hope.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, Eva.
What gives me hope is the reaction of the people with whom we interact. It's the fact that after 1 hour of discussion, 1 hour of really like getting to know the other, then we feel that there is a change. And that there is an interest or something, a little switch that has started, and very often I was told or I heard that anyway it's no use, and each time that I try and each time that I do things, I realize how much people are thirsty for this kind of actions, and that they are more than happy to join, and that they need this kind of dialogue. They need this kind of actions being held, because they don't know how to do it, but they are happy to join. And a lot of them, it's majority of the people on the ground who are interested, they just don't know how to do that. So that's what gives me hope, their reaction on the field, and I know that we can do it and that we can do some change. So that gives me hope.
Thank you, Ruth. And then I'll go to Father Stephen, and then we'll let Satele have the last word.
Finally, the man is taking over before the woman. It has always been this way. Yeah, what gives me hope, first of all, is listening to ladies like this, and especially my Egyptian sister, who is a Muslim. I love what she said about trying to see whether it is possible to teach Islam to Christians and Christianity to Muslims in the same class. I don't know how it's going to work, but it sounds good, because sometimes when you teach hatred, you isolate the one group and teach them what you. So I like that idea. I hope it works. But most importantly, I also get encouraged when after my experience of Muslims in Nigeria. Really, there have been honest Muslims who are sincerely interested in dialogue, and they hate the stereotyping of Islam with violence and other. They hate it, and that sincerity that I see in some of them encourages me. I don't want to listen to those who preach hatred and violence, but the ones who are sincerely out for dialogue encourage me. For example, when I was preparing for one of the visits to the mosque, I called up a particular leader to ask him, could you help me? I didn't feel encouraged by the response. I called the other person, and the second person was willing to go extra mile to get it done. So I feel encouraged by such people in the field of interreligious dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
I just finished my initiative last month. Before the initiative, the interreligious dialogue, our community, very basically the Buddhist nun. Before and after, yes, I had big hope because now we have commitment and got a lot of commitment from our nun community. They really support to this way, and then they commit me. What do you want to do? We are together. We can be finding the networking. Yes, and God, now I have received the commitment from my sister. So this is a bit hope for me. Yes, I think the next year my interreligious dialogue, the program is a very serious of coming the year 2020. Yes, with a big hope.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our guests today. And that is all for today for On Dialogue. We thank you for joining us. Until next time.